You did everything right, and it still was not enough. Not through carelessness. You were not lazy, and you did not cut the corner. You did the work the way you were told the work should be done, and the thing you were doing it for did not arrive. That is a particular kind of tired. It is not the tiredness that comes from effort. It is the tiredness that comes after effort, when effort turns out not to have been the variable. And most of what gets said to a person standing in that place is some version of keep going. It is said kindly. It is also useless because it answers a question you stopped asking a while back. 5 old stories are going to say something else about that. Not one of them says try harder. The first is about a small boy who wanted to sit on his father's knee. His father was a king. The boy climbed up the way children do without asking, because it had not occurred to him that permission was a thing he would need. And a woman in that room, his father's other wife, told him to get down. She did not tell him he was bad. That is the part people leave out when they tell it quickly. She told him he had not come from her body, and so the seat was not his to sit in. And his father, who was sitting right there, said nothing at all. The boy got down and walked out of the room. He was 5 years old. Hold that for a moment, because everything worth telling in this story happens on the other side of that door. He did not go away and become better. He did not train or plead or set out to make himself into the kind of son who would be permitted on the knee. Those would all have been reasonable. Those are what we do. He went into the forest, and what he stopped doing there was trying to be chosen. And the text says that when he was found, standing on 1 foot in that forest, the thing he had originally gone looking for was no longer what he was asking for. He had gone out for a seat. He came back fixed in the sky, and every other star turns around the place where he stands. The second is a grown man at the height of his powers, and it is 1 line long. He is the finest archer of his generation. The armies are drawn up and waiting. He has trained for this since he was a child, and there is nothing in the field in front of him that his skill cannot answer. And he looks across at who is standing on the other side, and he puts the bow down. That is the verse. He sets down the bow and the arrows, and he sits down in the chariot. The greatest instrument anyone had ever built for that particular problem, and its owner discovers in 1 moment that the problem is not the shape his instrument was built for. Notice what this is not. He has not lost his nerve, and he has not been outmatched. Nobody defeated Arjuna. His hands still work. The bow still works. He has simply arrived at the edge of what being extremely good at something can do, and found that the edge is closer in than anyone told him. Everything that is said to him afterwards is said to a man sitting down with his weapon on the floor. It could not have been said to him standing. The third is not a person at all. An elephant goes down to the water to drink the way it has done every day of its life, and something in the water takes hold of its foot and does not let go. And here is the detail the story is actually built on. An elephant is the strongest thing in that forest. It pulls. It has every reason to believe that pulling will work, because pulling has always worked. It is not weak, and it is not being punished. The texts let this go on a very long time. That is deliberate, and it is the most honest thing in the whole account. Not a heroic minute, not a fair contest, just a strong creature discovering slowly, over a length of time that is painful to sit with, that its strength is the wrong tool and it does not have another one. And there is nobody watching. That matters more than it sounds. This is not a trial with an audience and a lesson waiting at the end of it. It is an animal in water, on an ordinary afternoon, running out. I want to be careful with the next part, because it is what gets softened whenever this story is told, to make somebody feel better. The account does not say that help came quickly. It says the opposite, and it takes its time saying it. The length is the point. It is drawn out so that you cannot read the ending as a reward for holding on, because by the time the ending arrives, there is nothing left that could honestly be called holding on. And what finally happens doesn't happen because it pulled harder at the end. It happens when the elephant reaches out with its trunk and lifts a flower and stops trying to save itself. The fourth is the smallest, and it is the one I would keep if I could only keep one. A mother is trying to tie a child to a wooden mortar. Ordinary domestic irritation, an ordinary afternoon, and the rope is short. So she fetches more rope and adds it, and it is still short by the same small margin. She adds more, and more after that, and every single time the rope is short by exactly the same 2 fingers' width. The gap doesn't grow. It never grows. It also never closes, and it does not care how much rope is in the courtyard. That is the most exact picture of a certain kind of life that anyone has ever drawn. Not failure, not being far away, being consistently, precisely, unclosably short, by an amount that looks small enough that surely a little more effort would do it. The rope only closes when she stops, and the text is careful about why. It does not close because she found enough rope. It closes because of what was in her while she was trying. The fifth one is where all 4 of the others have been going. The ocean is being churned, and what comes up first is not treasure. It is poison. Enough of it to end everything, rising out of the water while everyone stands there holding the rope, and nobody can hold it. It is not a question of who is strongest in that circle. There is no amount of strength that makes a person able to hold that. So Siva takes it into his palm, and he drinks it, not thrown somewhere else, not diluted, not divided into portions small enough to be survivable, not made into a smaller problem, taken entirely into a body that could hold it. And it stops in his throat, and it stays there, and the mark it leaves does not fade. He is named after it afterwards. The blue-throated one. The injury became the name. That is the answer the other 4 stories were walking toward, and it is not a comfortable one. The tradition does not say the poison was not real, and it does not say it stopped hurting. It says it was taken by someone who could hold it, and that the holding left a mark that is now the first thing anyone says about him. So here is what the 5 of them have in common, and it is not what you would expect from stories like these. Not one of them is about a person who tried harder and was rewarded for it. The boy stopped trying to be chosen. The archer put the weapon down. The elephant let go of the idea that it could pull free. The mother ran out of rope. And the last one was not solved by strength at all. It was carried by someone who could carry it. That is not a story about giving up, and it would be a cheap reading to hear it that way. Every one of these people had already spent everything they had. The letting go comes after the effort, not instead of it. You do not get to skip the pulling, but it does mean that the moment your strength runs out is not the moment the story ends. In all 5 of these, it is the hinge. It is the only place the story could have turned. So if you are at the end of what you can do, and you have been reading that, as the proof that you failed, these 5 would tell you that you have simply arrived at the place where something else takes over. None of this is advice, and I would not insult you by dressing it up as advice. There is nothing here to go and do this afternoon. If there were, it would belong to the same family as the rope and the bow and the pulling. One more thing to try, one more instrument to reach the end of. What these 5 offer is smaller than advice, and it lasts longer. It is a description. They are telling you that the place you are standing has been stood in before. By people this tradition thought were worth remembering for exactly that reason, and that standing there was not the end of what happened to any of them. You did everything right. It was not enough. Both of those are true, and neither of them is the end of it.